right, coming up on this edition of Today's Verdict, immigration advocates are calling on the city and state to better prepare for a second Donald Trump presidency. What you need to know. Next up, the MTA has approved its financial plan that includes fare and toll hikes that could take effect next August. I hope you're ready. Also, New Yorkers would get a much-needed $500 inflation refund under Governor Hochul's new plan. And finally, a long fight for a continued fund to support first responders and survivors from 9/11 terror attacks has been enacted by Congress. As you can see, we have much to get to, so stay tuned. Today's Verdict starts right now. Hello and welcome to Today's Verdict, the interactive show that gives you your legal rights and options. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Lesh. Well, Today's Verdict is always encouraging you to stay connected. Make sure to tweet me at David Lesh and hashtag Ask Today's Verdict if you have a question. And check us out at bronxnet.tv. The Vera Institute for Justice has a new coalition that advocates for legal resources for migrants. This comes as Mayor Eric Adams says he plans to cooperate with the Trump administration on how to handle the number of migrants coming to the city. Here to tell us more about this is Rosie Wang, Program Manager at the Vera Institute of Justice. Nice to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, David.
All right, so we're about, I don't know, a couple of weeks post-election. Things have changed in this city. The tone has changed for many different reasons. But when we're talking immigration, what's your feeling now as, as a New Yorker? Do you think that we're restricting rights on immigration? What are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, David. So I think that in the days and weeks post-election, it's become really clear that we are in a more critical time than ever. Donald Trump, during his campaign, very clearly promised a campaign of mass deportation and detention. And this will put New York immigrant communities and families at severe risk.
No, New York was a safe haven, at least under the Biden administration. Sanctuary city, however you want to put it. Is that happening anymore, or do those who are illegal have to worry that they're going to get knocks on their door that's going to tell them that they're going to be deported?
Yeah, that's a good question. So actually, under the first Trump administration in 2017, that saw New York really leading the way in making sure that New York immigrants were protected. At the Vera Institute of Justice, we worked closely with the New York Immigrant Family Unity Project. That in 2017 was the first statewide program for publicly funded deportation defense. And so many other states and jurisdictions, over 55 today, have followed in our footsteps because they've realized the benefits of protecting immigrant families and immigrant New Yorkers. So I think the second Trump administration really presents a critical time for us to stand up again.
Well, let's talk representation, because everybody needs a lawyer or wants a lawyer, but not everybody can get a lawyer or afford a lawyer. What is right now the procedure if you're being brought up on certain charges where they want to either deport you? Do you get a lawyer? Is one given to you? How does that work?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So unlike in criminal court, where you get a public defender if you can't afford a lawyer, there's no such protection in immigration court, even though the stakes are just as high or even higher. It can involve permanent separation from family. It can involve deportation to a country where your life might be threatened. And yet, if you can't afford a lawyer, you're not provided one. So what we're really fighting for is to pass legislation called the Access to Representation Act. And this would create a right to counsel in New York State immigration courts to make sure that people aren't left to fight alone. Because studies have found when people have attorneys, they're up to 10.5 times more likely to win their cases because they know their rights and they know their options, and that's going to be more critical than ever.
Now, this program, is it going to be a voluntary program, or attorneys can volunteer for these positions? Do they get paid through the state? Any idea on how there's compensation for the lawyers if they want to actually take on that job?
Yeah, so there's actually sort of a blueprint for this program, that New York Immigrant Family Unity Project that I mentioned, that started statewide in 2017. That specifically is for folks whose deportation cases start while they're in immigration detention. So they have all these extra barriers to accessing counsel. And the way that's worked is that nonprofit legal services providers with immigration practices, they are funded by the state to take these cases and represent people. And the same thing is envisioned by the Access to Representation Act.
This is New York State policies, from the governor down. Where are we going? I know you don't have a crystal ball, but are we going to see tougher legislation or loosening up of certain restrictions?
Yeah, I think, as unfortunately the anti-immigrant, hostile federal agenda rolls out, we're going to see communities devastated by it. More than, for example, 1 in 3 kids has an immigrant parent in New York State. Immigrants are over a quarter of our workforce. The well-being of our state really depends on our immigrant communities. So I think, New York's going to see that it is critical right now to stand up for immigrants and to invest in lawyers to make sure that they know their rights.
Any tips you would give to somebody who's watching now and they're afraid that someone's going to knock on the door and take them away? Anything you want to say to those people who are watching this program today?
Yeah, I would really encourage them to get legal assistance however they can, whether it's going to a Know Your Rights clinic, whether it's going to, a community center that may be offering some of this information, or finding a lawyer. And sort of the money that we are asking for from the state, we are asking for $165 million in immigration legal services this upcoming year to fund programs like that, to fund legal representation, but also to make sure that people have these outreach and have these referrals to connect them to legal help.
Well, hopefully, Rosie, thank you very much. Hopefully you'll come back maybe in a couple of months and give us a little bit of an update.
Yes, I would love to.
It was a pleasure having you.
Pleasure being here. Thank you.
All right, don't go anywhere, because we'll be right back to discuss the MTA fare increase. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. Commuters are upset because the MTA board approved a budget plan that includes public transportation fare hikes and toll increases slated to take effect next summer. Here to tell us more is Charlton D'souza, president of Passengers at United. Charlton, how you doing today?
Good. Thank you for having me on.
We're really going to get another fare increase? Didn't we just have one?
Unfortunately, it surprised us as advocates because we didn't even know that this was taking effect. It's going up to $3. It's going to devastate many families in our community.
All right, so let's back up a little bit here. So are we talking about subway, bus, both? Where's it going to be?
Subway, bus, and commuter rail, 4% across the board.
And what is it now?
It's right now $2.90. But we've also heard that the fare could go up as much as $3.25. It's up to the board.
All right, so what are we getting for this fare increase?
Unfortunately,
there should be some kind of quid pro quo, don't you think?
I wish it was. I wish we all want better service, but the MTA is a hot mess. It is.
Well, tell me why.
Because there's crime, there's dirty trains, delayed trains, and people are just fed up of riding the system. I came here today from Queens Village, all the way in Queens,
and the trains. Queens Village.
Yeah. Oh wow, nice to know.
And it's a long commute from Queens Village to here.
Yeah, by subway. Yep.
I took the Q44A, and then I used to take the train in. It's a long commute.
It is.
But you could get by on just one fare, right? If you do it the right way.
Exactly. Yes.
And that's a long way to travel. And that's the great thing about our cities. You can go from point A to point B, which could be 30 miles, and you could, 20 miles from here to Rockaway or wherever it is, and get there on just one MetroCard fare.
Fair.
That's what makes New York so great. But if we're increasing the prices that it costs us to take public transportation, it just makes it harder and harder to live here.
I agree with you. And with congestion pricing being put into effect on January 5th, You know, you would think the MTA would want to lower the fare to get people excited about using mass transit.
Well, let's talk
but they're
about that.
doing the
There's a
opposite.
lot of people don't really even understand what congestion pricing is. Maybe you can describe it a little
So
bit.
congestion pricing is basically a fee to enter Manhattan Central Business District. And the fee, according to what we're being told, is somewhere between $9 and $15, depending on the vehicle you enter the congestion pricing zone with. But it's going to devastate small businesses and communities. And what people don't understand, even if you don't drive, you're going to be affected by congestion pricing because you're not going to be able to get on the subway train because it's going to be so crowded, and you might have to wait for another train to come.
So what you're saying is more people are going to migrate to the subways because they don't want to get into an Uber or drive themselves and have to pay the extra congestion fee. So they're going to go to the subways.
Subways.
And it's going to be very crowded.
Right, and right now the subways don't have the capacity to add more people. However, the express buses, there is some capacity there, also capacity on commuter rails. We are upset with the MTA that they're not giving Bronx customers and Queens customers and Brooklyn customers a weekly pass for the commuter railroads like Metro North or Long Island Railroad.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I remember correctly, Governor Hochul suspended this program for a little while, the congestion pricing, and that didn't put it forth. And then all of a sudden there's an election. Now Donald Trump's is going to be in office. Did that have anything to do with it? Why all of a sudden now we're going to be having the congestion pricing?
So obviously the governor suspended congestion pricing because she was afraid they would lose House seats on the Democratic end. And what ended up happening, unfortunately, is now, you know, she's reinstated it. But the economy right now is suffering. If you go anywhere throughout Midtown or anywhere in the city, businesses are closing. And so that's why our organization did not support congestion pricing. We do not support this fare increase. What we do support is having the city and state controllers audit the MTA. And there's a lot of waste and mismanagement in the MTA.
Well, what does Passengers United do? Like, what can they do? Are they lobbyists in Albany? Like, what do they do to get the word out?
So Passengers United, we're a 501c3 grassroots nonprofit organization. We attend the MTA board meetings. We speak with elected officials. We communicate with them. We communicate with community stakeholders and passengers. And we actually help educate them to become a better advocacy group and to better advocate for themselves. So what we can do is when we go up to Albany and we talk to elected officials, we tell them this is what we need, this is what needs to be done. But there's a lot of waste in the MTA. And I go to all these MTA board meetings. What the public doesn't know is the MTA board members are appointed by the governor and the state legislature. And the turnover rate is maybe every 2 or 3 years you get new board members coming in, new chairman, new staff. So there's no accountability in the MTA. In fact, in 2006, the MTA was the 5th largest debitor in the United States. I kid you not. Why are we throwing more money at an agency that can't even handle its finances?
If you had to pick one area to fix of, let's say, the subways, what would you fix? Cleanliness, that it's dangerous. Where would you take the money and where would you put it?
Right now, unfortunately, subway safety.
Yeah.
We have a lot of emotionally disturbed people who are shooting up needles, doing drugs, and they're leaning on the edges of platforms, getting hit by trains and dying. And they're delaying a lot of the service. And the other thing is just cleaning, basic maintenance. The MTA needs to go back to, you know, dealing with the basic things, infrastructure, track maintenance, those types of things.
Listen, I hope they do something with the money because a lot of people can't afford to live here in New York City, whether they're making the commute from Queens Village or wherever they are. But hopefully you can come back and give us a little bit of an update maybe in the next couple of months.
Oh, sure. I'll be more than happy to come and give you an update on the Bronx bus redesign. We're going through the Queens bus redesign now, which is a whole hot mess. But, yep, we'll give you all the updates.
Well, it's nice to meet you, Charlton.
Nice to meet you, sir.
All right, we have to take a short break, but we will be back to tell you how you can receive an inflation refund. Stay with us. Well, New Yorkers would receive checks of up to $500 next year as part of a new proposal from Governor Kathy Hochul To tell us more is Robert Rodriguez, president of the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York. Robert, thanks for being here.
Thank you. It's an honor.
First of all, tell me a little bit about your organization, if you could.
Sure. We're the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York, better known as DASNY. We were created over 80 years ago to help with the raising of and construction of dorms across the state of New York. But in that time and over the last 80 years, our mission has expanded to really helping to finance and build the social infrastructure of the state. Not just dorms, but also looking at state buildings in the that cover Department of Health, that cover many of the state agencies, and really that help touch New Yorkers in so many ways. Part of our responsibility is also doing some of the capital raising for the state's capital program, and we give out a number of grants. We administer a number of the grants programs that the state offers. So a diverse organization that sometimes the name doesn't give all the information about.
Let's talk refunds.
Yes.
Everybody wants a refund, inflation refund. When, how much? What are your thoughts?
So this is a first time. I think many of us may be familiar with, property tax refunds and some of the other tax credit programs that have existed in the past. And the governor is hearing loud and clear what we all feel in our homes and in our bank accounts, that things cost more. Inflation is absolutely impacting the daily lives of New Yorkers. How can we go about taking steps? Now, we've taken some steps in the past, but this is an area where it has not been done before. In the areas of sales tax, everything that we buy in terms of our what we consume comes with a sales tax. And because of inflation, we have been collecting more sales tax because of the higher prices. And what we're saying is we have enough to be able to meet our commitments in terms of the state, but it gives us an opportunity right now because things have exceeded our expectations and our plans because of inflation, that we have the chance to return some of this money to New Yorkers. So what we're thinking about, and it's not a done deal, is in our state of the state proposal for next year, and part of our budget, we're including a $3 billion refund to New Yorkers. And the way that we have this structured is we're looking at, for individual filers, we'll look at providing a $300 payment if you make less than $150,000. If you're a joint filer / family, and then we're looking at a $500 payment for folks who are earning less than $300,000. So really a large swath of New Yorkers. This is potentially going to impact and benefit 8.6 million New Yorkers. So hasn't been done before, but we recognize that inflation is impacting us in so many ways. But in this instance, we can do something to put money back into the pockets of New Yorkers who've been paying this in sales tax.
Well, let me ask you, Robert, why now? I mean, there's been inflation for a couple of years now. People have been suffering for more than just a month. It's been years that we've been suffering with double-digit inflation. Now things are getting a little bit back to normal, but all of a sudden now we want to give the refund. Why wasn't it given last year or the year before that?
Yeah, I think it's about trying different things. And I think what's important on that front is, inflation is a little bit of a lag. So as rates are trying to come down, still hasn't happened. So we still are not seeing the benefit in terms of loan rates, and some of the actions that we've taken before, including a $4 billion tax relief for property owners, $600 million in terms of gas tax relief, trying to decrease the cost of childcare, increasing tuition assistance. So, we've been trying to do different things over time, but this was an area where we can say, okay, sales tax has not been done before. Let's try something new. And there's an opportunity with the reserves that we have in place in terms of being good fiscal stewards to be able to manage our state, that we now have enough comfort level where we can just take sales tax and try and return that and do something a little bit different. So as you hear, we've been over the last few years pushing the different levels, but we know that inflation is a tricky problem and not one that can only be addressed by state action. So this gives us, another way, another method to try and return and provide some form of relief to, in the absence of, real inflationary benefits that come from the private market, and from interest rates.
Where is the pushback coming from? Where do you find?
Well, I think on this one, we don't have pushback yet. We're putting the idea out there, and we're going to have that conversation in the budget with our legislature and see if we can get that passed for April 1st. In our plan, it would be part of that budget, being able to provide payments as early as fall of 2025. So, it's something we'd like to do, but does need legislative approval to do.
Well, it looks like everybody could use the money and would really be appreciative of the money, but it's got to come somewhere, and that's always a matter of just figuring it out. And maybe you can come back in the next couple of weeks or couple of months and let us know if we're getting our money.
Yeah, and this is easy because we know where it's coming from. It's coming from the sales tax that people have already paid. So, it's there, and it can be returned. So we're hopeful and excited about the opportunity to come back and tell you when you're getting your refund.
I love it. All right, Robert, thanks very much, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right, we have to take a short break, but don't go anywhere. All right, in its end-of-year budget bill, Congress has rejected the funding to meet the growing health needs of 9/11 first responders and survivors. Without additional funding, the health program will be unable to accept new members in 2027. Well, to tell us more about this funding and program, we have Lee London, managing attorney from Barasch and McGarry. Lee, how you doing today?
Good, and thank you so much for having me.
It's
This is a very important topic, and I was devastated this morning when I heard that the 9/11 Responder and Survivor Health Funding Correction Act collapsed and was turned down by the budget that the bill was attached to for the end of year.
I can't think of a group that really deserves to be compensated more than the 9/11 responders. Why are we still having this conversation? What is the problem?
I've been working with the 9/11 community for over 12 years, and we have faced obstacles before, but we have to stand behind our first responders, our volunteers that sacrificed on that day and the 8 months following 9/11 that are now getting sick and coming down with over 69 cancers linked to toxic exposure.
So did we have any idea when we sent them in there that there was going to be an issue with respect to health?
Not at all. The EPA said that the air was safe. They wanted to open Wall Street back up, and over 300,000 office workers went back to work. Over 35,000 residents went back to live in the toxic exposure. The World Trade Center Health Program needs our support, and it needs to be fully funded.
What does the fund do? I mean, and first of all, how do they even pick out those who need it? Do you need doctor's notes? I mean, how does it work? How do you know what kind of money you're going to get?
So that's a great question. So when the Zadroga Act was first initiated, and this is on December 22nd in 2010, it permanently funded the Victim Compensation Fund and the World Trade Center Health Program to cover medical costs and treatment associated to cancers and conditions that many volunteers, first responders, and survivors, they've been getting diagnosed with these horrible illnesses, moving in farther away from 9/11. The survivor population is drastically undercounted. They don't have the education that these benefits are out there for them. 85% of the NYPD and the FDNY are in the program and know about it, but less than 10% of the survivor population, the students, the teachers, the residents, the workers, the court officers, have no idea that this program exists.
Now, why is that? Why the word hasn't gotten out, or what?
They haven't taken advantage of these benefits, and cancers will rear its head any day. So we want to be prepared. And when the World Trade Center Health Program was fully funded, they did not take into account the amount of the 9/11 community that would be sick and needing its benefits. So this 9/11 Responder and Survivor Health Funding Correction Act would have solved that formula defect, that budget defect that we needed so much.
Now, why was it knocked down? What happened?
This is a part of the obstacles we face. It is scary to me that Congress isn't behind the 9/11 responders and heroes that sacrificed everything on the day and the 8 months after. It is an emotional toll that I would have to tell my clients that their benefits, their cancer treatment would be cut, that their doctors would leave the program. And the World Trade Center Health Program was already in talks to roll back benefits because they had to prepare for 2027 and not having enough funds to support this needed program.
What is morale like? Is it just waning at this point?
The 9/11 community is resilient, but they also don't want to be, suffering in silence that their benefits are going to be cut, especially with the holidays approaching right now. My firm, Michael Barasch from my firm at Barasch and McGarry, we advocate for the 9/11 community day in and day out. We were in Washington yesterday, and it was horrible to learn that this bill collapsed, this morning. But we are confident that by the end of the year, it will be added and we can give our clients peace of mind.
Well, let me ask, because that's actually what I want to talk about. The end of the year is only a couple of weeks away. You think within 2 weeks you're going to be able to get this bill passed? We
hope so. We really do hope so. And it's a bipartisan agreement. We have both sides at the table, which is amazing to see. The 9/11 community is resilient, and we must make sure that we bring attention to what is going on. We never want to forget 9/11, but we also never want to forget that they are still suffering today. And it's really about the survivors, the teachers, the students. I spoke to somebody that was 9 months on 9/11. 9 months on 9/11, and now they are in school and have stage 4 breast cancer and going back and forth for treatment. And they're part of this World Trade Center Health Program. This World Trade Center Health Program is for survivors, responders, volunteers, for the Pentagon exposure too. So this is a bill that needs to get passed so we don't have heroes waiting that their benefits will be cut.
And by the way, Lee, we take a step back. This, whatever the medical issues that you have, whether it's cancer or whatever it is, they can link it to whatever went on at the site. Am I correct?
Exactly. It's a presumption. If you were down there and you were exposed, you must ask questions because it's a presumption that your cancers are linked. Family history does not matter. If you were a smoker, that does not matter. It's a presumption that if you were down there, the toxic exposure was so bad and so many chemicals that it led to these cancers. And you have to ask questions. And many of the survivors are starting to connect the dots. And this morning was supposed to be an amazing day that we were supposed to celebrate that we were able to fully fund this program. And now this is just another obstacle, and the 9/11 community has been through this before, and we will get through it like we've done before.
Well, Lee, I'm going to wish you luck. I mean, you got a couple of weeks, and even if it's into the next year, you do the best you can to try and help these people. It's a noble effort, I will say that, and hopefully you'll come back and give us an update.
Yes, exactly. I truly appreciate it.
All right. Well, stay with us. We have a lot more coming up right after this. All right, that's all we have for today. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us and, of course, you, the viewers, for watching. If you missed any part of today's show, be sure to check it out at BronxNet.tv. Also, remember, if there's a legal issue or topic you'd like to see in a future edition of Today's Verdict, feel free to contact me at davidlesh@bronxnet.org or tweet me at davidlesh and make sure to hashtag Today's Verdict. From myself and all of us at Today's Verdict, always remember, know your rights, know your issues, reach a verdict. I'm David Lesh, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks with an all-new episode of Today's Verdict right here on BronxNet. You take care. Have a great holiday.